We only started 7 minutes late, so we're doing good so far.
Great.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Lone Star Legacy episode 16?
I don't know.
Maybe 17. I'm pretty sure it's one of those two.
Did someone count?
16.5.
We are here to discuss today's change to the BNR list. So, start with introductions. I'm Sam Craven. I am drinking a Fernet and Coke. I'm joined by... we should probably set up an order that we do this in, huh?
I'll go second. I'm Ben Kendrick. I'm drinking Coke Zero. I'm a little jealous of Sam's Fernet there because that is kind of delicious. He made me one the other day.
Hey, everybody. I'm Sean. I'm drinking water. It's all right.
Hey, guys. I'm Arjun. I'm drinking a feisty cherry Diet Coke.
Sam is the only one drinking an alcoholic beverage.
Is Feisty Cherry similar to Wild Cherry?
I like it more. It's got a little bit more of a kick. Some people say it's spicy. I don't think it's actually spicy, but I think it's I don't know. I feel like the carbonation just kind of brings its taste in a little bit more than like a normal cherry Coke or cherry Coke Zero or something. I kind of like it. I like it better than the other Diet Coke flavors for sure.
Can we just review sodas instead of talking about Legacy?
We can definitely do that.
I kind of miss Sprite Remix. That's my confession. Like, I know it was just Skittles, like carbonated with water, but that was my soda.
What about those Snapples with the elements?
Oh, those are good too.
I don't know what you're talking about. Was that like Last Airbender promotional material or something?
No, this is like probably 15 years ago now. This is high quality Magic content. All right, let's get to it.
We're all just trying to hide our excitement about what just happened, Sam. That's all. We want to ease our way into it.
Banned restricted list update. Legacy, Deathrite, Shaman, and Gitaxian probe are banned. Normally, I would read the entire announcement, but it's 6 goddamn paragraphs. So I'm going to put the TLDR on this is Deathrite Shaman makes it easy to play lots of colors without getting hurt too much, which stifles the format.
I mean, the Deathrite Shaman discussion has been done to death.
I'm just saying, that's the short version of their 3-paragraph explanation.
Yeah,
I see.
Yeah,
Summary.
sounds about right.
And Gitaxian probe has a Phyrexian mana symbol on it.
That's fair enough.
That's
Yeah. Well, I think the interesting thing is that he tried to use some sort of like data to back up what they were doing in terms of saying that Grixis Delver and then Ant are the two of the most played decks in the format and have relatively high win percentages. So that's kind of why they chose to do probe, I think, in this iteration of the ban cycle. And I think that's why it's kind of been on their short list anyways. But I thought it was kind of interesting that they started to add more kind of data in terms of how they approach. I'm not sure if they're looking at the right data or anything like that, but it's just interesting that they're being more, I think, public with a little bit into their line of thinking on this sort of stuff, especially for eternal format versus something.
Yeah, they're not just guessing is what it seems like, which is nice.
Right.
Well, I kind of got to wonder if maybe a little bit of that is a card like this. People have been calling for both of these to be banned for a while now. So, maybe you need to justify why it wasn't banned before and why it needed to be banned and not on the next go round.
I mean, I don't believe that people are... I don't know. A lot of people are kind of complaining that, Wizards is just banning things that get a lot of public outcry, and that's not how they should manage a ban list. Which, for one, I don't really think that's necessarily true, because I've heard complaints about... Honestly, I'd say I've heard more complaints about Chalice than I have about Gitaxian Probe.
It's because people are bad at playing against Chalice.
Against Chalice, yeah. No, I understand. I think it's a miserable card to play against, but it's I think it's got its place in the meta. But the other thing is, I don't know, if it's not down to, some combination of what the public thinks and what the balance teams think, I don't know. What are you suggesting? That the balance teams are in charge of everything? I don't mean to be too down on their record, but, just look at how Standard turned out recently. If you don't want them to factor in public opinion at all, then, I don't know, who's making these decisions?
Well, I think a semi-secret thing, not really secret, but one reason why they did probe on this particular iteration rather than, let's say, 3 months out, is because I think they were scared of if they banned... Well, I didn't think they want Deathrite Shaman 1 because I think the coverage would be kind of poor because everyone's just playing some sort of 4-color soup deck or Grixis Delver. But beyond that, I think they thought if they banned Deathrite, I think there'd be a lot more Storm happening. And as much as Storm is great, it's a really poor coverage deck because it just, makes land drops, draws cards, does nothing, and then, kills people after, on turn 3 or 4.
Well, really, I
Or
think
just
the
dies,
reason that Storm
like,
is a bad coverage deck is because the guys on coverage don't know how it works, so they can't explain what's going on until after it's already happened.
Sure, but I think if you're not like a legacy player, like seeing creatures on the board, it's like kind of intuitive at least in that, the battlefield is this, there's like a 2/3 and like, a 3/3 on the board or whatever. Whereas against Storm, you don't really see anything on the board happening unless you already like follow the format. Then I think you don't care. Like you're happy to see whatever's getting played anyway. But I think as like a new person or person who maybe only plays standard or something, it's very hard to like not either turn off the TV or do something else if Legacy's on and all you're seeing is like some guy making like 3 land drops and then the game ends.
So what you're implying here a little bit is that the Pro Tour is indeed a consideration in this BNR update.
I think it is. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that was something you wanted to say.
Yeah, I would say it's at least a consideration in timing. Like maybe they wanted to get rid of Gitaxian Probe anyway. They're doing it right now.
Right. Yeah, I don't think it sounds like they just decided to kill Probe just because the Pro Tour's coming up. I think that's kind of been on their short list for a while anyways. But I think the timing of pairing with Deathrite Shaman, it kind of makes sense looking at it in hindsight. If they're going to ban Deathrite Shaman before the Pro Tour as well, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Also, I don't think they like to ban. They want to have bannings as non-often as possible. Right. So you don't build a deck and then all of a sudden have it get banned. So if they're kind of thinking, yeah, we're going to end up banning Gitaxian Probe eventually anyway, just do it right now, and then there's no card in the format I can even think of that people are going to be calling for a ban for, except Brainstorm, obviously. But
I mean, even that, I wouldn't say there are too many people calling for that. I know there's like a pretty vocal minority, or I don't know, it might be a vocal majority at this point. There's no way to tell, but like there will always be people clamoring for a Brainstorm ban. And there will always be people insisting that it contributes more to the format than it detracts. So,
yeah, no.
But it's here to say,
there's nothing that I would say I think is more likely than not to get banned in the next couple of years. Like once Top went, I was immediately thinking, Deathrite might eat it here soon, but I can't think of something else that replaces that as the target.
Mm-hmm. Right. Maybe if they print some degenerate broken card in the near future, but
yeah. But there's nothing right now that I'd say better than 50% on.
Mm.
All right, so we got past the intro and we have already left our outline.
Yes.
So getting back to our planned commentary, just short response, less than 60 seconds. How do you feel about this change, Arjun?
Sorry?
How do you feel about this change in 60 seconds or less?
Sorry, you're just breaking up on me. Anyways, I feel pretty good about it, honestly. I mean, I still think that there are some decks that may become very good with this banning that people aren't going to be super happy about. Notably with the reanimator style strategies. That said, I think this is fine. As a person who plays, a lot of Storm relative to everything else, even though I haven't played as much recently, it's a little sad to see Probe go, and I think it has some impact on what the best type of Storm style deck is. But I'm okay with it. It does hurt the deck, but I don't think it cripples it to the point where it's unplayable or anything like that.
Ben?
I mean, as for Deathrite, I literally did a little dance when I heard that Deathrite was getting banned, so I'll spare the commentary on that. I think Probe's the more interesting one, though. I'm not. It's like I wasn't. If it didn't get banned, it wouldn't bother me. Like I think it's fine. It does make some games less interesting, and it's just one of those cards, like almost like Mental Misstep in Vintage. Like it doesn't bother me that it's legal, but if it got restricted, I'd say, oh, okay, that's kind of an unfun card. That's cool. So I don't have super strong feelings about the Probe ban. I'm fine with it, I guess.
Sean?
In a word, I would say I feel hopeful about this because I think Legacy is such a slow-moving format, and it's kind of gotten to this point where it's been distilled down into this, like, because I don't know, we talked about this when Top was just banned. And I think a couple months after that, talked about Deathrite Shaman might need to go. We were talking about let's give it a year to 18 months and see where it goes from there. And everybody's been trying to attack these Deathrite decks. Everybody's been trying to kind of find a way to sort of knock out Grixis Delver as like the top deck in the format. And there are things that have favorable matchups against it, but at the end of the day, like nobody really could. Nobody had a good way to do it. And so like, I don't know, regardless of whatever side you're on, I think like you at the very least need to feel like kind of excited about like a meta shakeup, because it's been pretty dull for a while now. And I'm really excited to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, I agree that it's been a little dull. My feelings are, as pretty much is always the case on a BNR change for me, mixed. I wish it were possible to ban decks while keeping cards legal so that, you could still play Deathrite Shaman and Jund, but that's obviously not something that's really doable. I'm excited to have a different metagame. I'm excited for Reanimator to be playable again. But beyond mixed feelings, we kind of get into the rest of our outline, really. So let's start we're going to start with the discussion that I think we have less to talk about, and talk about Gitaxian Probe, which we've already mentioned a little bit. What do you think of the ban of Gitaxian Probe? What changes in the format with the lack of Gitaxian Probe?
I think despite being a lot less like clamored for, this ban is a lot less controversial. Like, nobody is saying, what, they banned Gitaxian Probe? That was like such a fair and balanced card and added so much to games and really improved the experience all around.
Your life total though, so much.
And now I know how it feels to be a modern player, right? Like I got to shock myself. Yeah. But like, it's just kind of, like when Deathrite Shaman, people read the first line, they're like, oh my God, Deathrite Shaman's banned. They read the second line, Gitaxian Probe's banned. Everyone just collectively shrugs. Like, it's a poorly designed card. It leads to pretty uninteractive experiences. I don't know. Arjun was talking about he plays a lot of Storm. I play a lot of Infect. I don't know. I love my free wins. Sometimes I'll probe the other guy. I'll be like, oh, cool. Force Will, no blue card, and a bunch of 4-drops. Great, let's kill you, But, like, at the end of the day, I'm willing to give up, like, a couple of free wins for what's almost definitely just going to be a better play experience for everybody.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Sean. I mean, obviously, Probe is a huge card in Storm because it's free Storm and free information. But I think it changes some of the value on a relative basis on the Storm decks, and it will change how people create Storm decks in the sense that I think most people are going to be playing, instead of 7 discard spells and 4 probes, they're probably going to be playing something like 9 discard spells and 2 preordains on top of that. So the deck is going to become a little grindier, a little slower. A deck like Test becomes worse because it's so low to the ground. Having that free Storm is incredibly valuable compared to Ant, which still uses, Probe, but I think it kind of changes the balance of which Storm decks is better. I've kind of had the idea that Test has been the better Storm deck for the last year or so, especially with Deathrite Shaman everywhere, because it's less graveyard reliant, and a lot of the decks that play Deathrite Shaman have trouble against like 12 goblins on turn 1. Whereas now I think the Ant style decks are going to be a little bit better. There's just less main deck graveyard hate for something like Past in Flames. There's probably no need to even run ad nauseum in the main deck anymore, to be honest. Mm-hmm. But it's going to change it's going to change these decks up a little bit and kind of slow them down a bit. But overall, I think it'll be good. I think it makes playing Storm a little bit more skill intensive, rather than just probe them. Oh, they don't have anything, time to go off. But yeah, but I don't know. I'm honestly I'm a little sad to see Probe go, but again, yeah, like Sean said, I'm not surprised or I don't feel like they've killed my deck or anything like that. You
also don't feel like it was unjustified either. Like Gitaxian Probe's been like, yeah, that was coming. Like
I joke a lot about it, but yeah, no, the card's really good, and for the cost, it provides an incredible amount of information and value for almost no cost, especially in Legacy. So it's fine. I don't mind seeing it go. I mean, the downside is I need to start getting more foil Thoughtseize, which is going to kind of suck. But beyond that, it'll be fine.
So I think it's funny you mentioned that you'll just be playing additional preordains or other cantrips in that slot. Because I was talking to some of the guys who played a lot of Tin Fins. We're like, perfect. We figured out how to fit the 4th Ponder in. Because it's so hard to justify not playing a full 4 probe in any combo. Like, well, that answers that question. The way you fit your Ponders in is you have Gitaxian Probe be banned.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think a lot of the ban really it comes down to what so many insane places called play patterns, and like we've said, it's just going to be more interesting because you have to put forth some amount of effort in order to go off. You can't just go, oh, coast is clear, go. You have to at least pay mana to find out the coast is clear.
Right. And then another kind of tangential thing that I see a lot when I play Storm decks is, a lot of times I'll lead off with the turn 1 probe, even if I know I'm playing a Delver deck or something. And then I can kind of get an idea of whether they have Wasteland or not in their opening hand, and I can kind of plan my fetch a little bit better. I think this actually makes you want to play a more stable mana base a lot more, because there's a lot more games where you can just get blown out by like fetching a sea and then hitting Wasteland and the game ends. So there's some like small stuff like that which actually comes up fairly often that this also stops. So I think like more stable basic island plus basic swamp sort of mana bases become a lot more valuable in those sorts of decks as well, which I think is something that people don't really think about as much. But I think for like really low land count decks, that is really relevant as well.
There's one other thing I wanted to point out, and we had discussed how you want a little bit of a shake up is I think a small reason, definitely not the top reason, probably not even the top 3 reasons, but a little thing that might have helped push them along is that I could definitely see with Deathrite Shaman being banned, Grixis Delver still being almost the exact same deck and still being very good. And
so what would it replace Deathrite with? Just like Goose or something completely different?
Maybe like 2 or 3 threats and 1 or 2 additional lands.
So it's almost like a Rug Delver deck, right? Except instead of playing like Goose and Goyf, it's playing Zombie Fish instead of Goyf, I guess, and some other beater instead of Goose.
Right.
Well, what I think makes that deck so good is that it has the best 1-drop. It has both of the best 1-drops in the format, and like it plays 8 1-drops. And that's a big part of why like Rug Delver can be tempo-y, Grixis Delver can be tempo-y. That's sort of why Bug Delver could never. I guess like Bug Delver had that going for it, but like I don't know, all the other weird flavors of Delver, like Blue, White, Red, and stuff like that, you didn't have premier 1-drop threats like that. And I think the bigger danger there is like maybe not so much a Delver deck, but like imagine a deck that's like, okay, we lost Deathrite Shaman, we probably don't even need Delver. Like there's all sorts of potential for like a Grixis mid-range Pyromancer therapy nonsense shell, and I think like that might be where a lot of those decks move to if they can't play Deathrite Shaman anymore.
So I agree with your point. I do want to say I think the problem with Blue, White, Red Delver is not the threats as much as the fact that all of your possible removal does stuff that the deck doesn't want to do, which is having them gain life, or if you play Path, having them get extra lands.
I mean, God bless that deck.
The synergistic deck I've ever played. I think I've had draft decks that were more synergistic than Red Delver. But
yeah, it's just a pile of good stuff.
A lot of powerful cards in it, though. So that's just, it can overcome it a little bit, but I don't think that's really coming back.
Do you guys think that Young Pyromancer is going to see a reasonable amount of play? Because I can't really think of a deck that plays it at this point anymore, especially with Probe gone. I think you also lose therapies as well.
Yeah, the Probe is
yeah, exactly.
I
could play some sort of Grixis control deck without Deathrite Shaman, but I think without Probe, I don't know if Pyromancer is even really like a playable card anymore.
I could see it as not as a 4-of.
Right.
Because like there have been decks of Rug, like there have been builds of Rug Delver that play like 1 to 3 of them, just because it allows you to go wide and block a whole bunch of stuff at once or get around a whole bunch of blockers. But
Sure.
As a core part of the deck, Blue, Red Delver maybe.
But even that, like the 4 probes are so relevant in that deck because you have Monastery, Swift Spears, and stuff. Just you need to just power out, with Probe.
I think Blue Red Delver, as we know it, is like completely dead though. Like the
without Probe, I think it's in pretty bad shape.
Yeah, it's like four of the Monastery Swift Spear and 4 of the Storm Chaser Mage, and then I guess a couple of Soulscar Mage.
Well, I think
or if they're playing Pyromancer, some people do, some people don't. But either way, like all those cards kind of leverage Probe as much as they can.
Right, but I think the version that was just playing a bunch of Prowess creatures is going to have a really hard time surviving. Whereas like the more mid-rangey versions that you're talking about with like Pyromancer and stuff like that, I've seen some go up to like Clicks of True Names. I think those might have an easier time.
Yeah, I think so. But so you mentioned almost not a Delver deck anymore at that point. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
Well, the format's
deck dying. And that was the thing that we definitely have listed to talk about Deathrite Shaman. But I had forgotten that there's probably some decks that die with Gitaxian Probe. Blue-Red Delver is possibly one of them.
Hold on a second. Ben, what were you trying to say? You're at a bit of a disadvantage because your mic isn't very good.
Oh, no worries. The format's going to slow down quite a bit just because of the lack of Deathrite and Probe. So I don't know if Blue-Red Delver, it doesn't need to be as fast as it did before. So even though it slowed down a bit, it might kind of be in the same place it was.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, though. I mean, it's just, who knows how this meta is going to shake out. So
right.
Red Delver seems like a good deck to be on right now when you don't really know what the threats are going to be, because it's a pretty quick, versatile deck. It's counter burn, really.
Yeah, that's true. You definitely want to be playing something proactive whenever there's a big meta shift.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, Sam, you were talking about decks that are probably going to have a hard time existing with the Probe ban.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was leaving around on Reddit a little bit. Two that kind of stood out to me that I hadn't really thought about. People were saying Manaless Dredge is going to have a really hard time because that's one of the free ways to continue to draw. There's a bunch of slow trips and stuff. You can play Mishra's Bauble that fill a similar role, but it was just a free way to dredge things, And then if you wanted to play Force of Wills and stuff, that would add to your blue count as well. But it was really a card that slotted really well to that deck. Similarly, I've heard Belcher really liked Probe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, adding a storm count was really important, but also just I don't know, sometimes you just want to go for it, and being able to know I can make 14 goblins unimpeded versus throw caution to the wind and just yellow it, which I don't know, if you're playing Belcher, maybe that's what you want to do in the first place. But
so yeah. I don't remember quite clearly, but I believe Belcher existed to a much greater extent than Manaless Dredge existed before Probe.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Belcher can make it. It just won't be as good. And it could just be the Belcher deck that I borrowed from a guy I work with, Chad. It could be that they go, okay, we have to change directions. And he had a 8-year-old build of Belcher that was that had Bayou in it for Dark Rituals, and it played a Tendrils of Agony in the sideboard.
Jesus.
Nice.
You know what they should do? They should replace the 4 Gitaxian Probes with 4 Chancellor of the Annex.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. You can exile them to Chrome Box for colorless mana. Or white mana.
Oh, max value. White
yeah.
mana. That's
Think
good.
about it. Mm-hmm.
Win-win
Does
right
Belcher
there.
play Street Wraith's main deck? I mean, a standard Belcher build in 2018. I actually don't
think they
know. I mean, that's always a kind of easy slot into. But I think I kind of like the Chancellors more.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Manaless Dredge is interesting. I didn't think about Probe, but it benefits greatly from the Deathrite Shaman ban.
Mm-hmm.
That was that card.
Absolutely.
Are we on to
I guess
Deathrite Shaman now?
Is also worse, but yeah.
We got a couple more.
Yeah,
one other thing I wanted to talk about. I think the Death Shadow decks were actually a force to be reckoned with for a while. But with Deathrite Shaman and Gitaxian Probe getting the boot, I don't think there's any way they can survive anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if red is not that played, I feel like in the format slowing down, just being able to drop a couple of 5/5s for 1 mana is maybe good enough. Maybe not. I haven't played that much against the Legacy Death Shadow decks, but
yeah. I mean, I think
don't know.
really, I toyed around with it a little bit, and what I really found was fantastic about it was in the same way that Grixis Delver has access to 8 1-drops. It's you have access to functionally 12 1-drops in that deck. Not that it's likely you're dropping a Death Shadow on turn 1, but for example, you can go turn 1, probe your opponent, crack fetch, find a duel, or a shock land. You're yourself 15 or 13 at this point, play Deathrite Shaman pass turn, untap, crack fetch, shock, shadow, and all of a sudden it's what is your opponent going to do?
Yeah, day something, take 2 more.
Yeah, exactly. No, I played the I think I told you guys about this. I play the most savage build of that with 4 main deck surgicals. And I get paired against Bizarro Stormy round 1, and the guy was not happy.
That's great.
Yeah.
I've got one more dead deck.
Let's hear it.
Doomsday.
Oh, yeah, but I
mean, stop. He's already dead.
Just because we thought since his Divining Top was too much, they decided take out his heart too.
Like, I mean, I guess you can still play the Emrakul build of that deck.
It feels so bad though without you have like a bunch of like awful cantrips that you have to like resolve. Oh god! All right.
Yeah, you shell dock out Emrakul was that's always been like the if you can't math it out, that's just the kill that you go with because it's 2 cards.
Yeah, makes sense.
Do you guys
prove anything Emrakul, so
do you guys think Ian Duke got picked on by like a Doomsday pilot when he was like in grade school? And he's like, man, fuck that card, fuck that deck. When I grew up, I'm gonna work at Wizards of the Coast, and I'm gonna ban the shit out of it. No one's ever gonna beat me up with Doomsday again.
I think there's probably just a high probability that he said, you know what, I'll be the punching bag on this.
That's true. I mean, I don't know. Reed Duke is I don't know much about Ian Duke, but Reed Duke is a phenomenal and fantastic Magic player, so his brother can't be too far away from that. Yeah, one last point. I think we're wrapping up on Probe, but I kind of, like, from a broader perspective, I wanted to make the point that, like, kind of going back to what we were talking about first, it leads to some really, really boring play patterns. And I think, like, the effect that Probe has on the format is, like, a little bit harder to quantify because you can't look at a game and say, like, oh, because he had perfect information here. Like, once in a while you can, because, like, he knew exactly what to style for, he knew exactly what to, I guess, name with Cabal Therapy, but, like, there's a lot of games where it's just like having that information tells you exactly, helps you know like exactly how to sequence your spells and like what to fight against. I think one of the greatest like things about card games is like the asymmetry of information, and like Probe just completely invalidates that. Like I don't know if you guys like play board games and stuff like that. It's a completely different experience from card games, and that's kind of why like that's what makes card games unique and interesting. It's sort of like that risk reward analysis, and that kind of gets gutted entirely as long as Probe is in the format.
Your use of the word symmetry there is very interesting to me, because my favorite argument for Mishra's Workshop is that it plays all fair symmetrical cards and then makes them unsymmetrical. And I suppose Probe is sort of the same kind of thing. We play with the symmetrical rule of we don't know each other's hands, and then I say, actually, I do know yours.
Right. But I don't know.
I think like the better analogy would be like if you had to reveal your own hand as like a cost to playing it or something.
Oh, that would be awesome. I would love this. That would be a great card.
That'd be even more boring.
I think the best part of that would be probing them, laying down your hand and be like, by the way, you're dead. Do you want to try and figure it out, or do you want to let me do it?
That's right. Oh, what's that? You're on Moon Stomping?
Exactly.
tough break. I'm on Belcher, so good luck, friend.
Got you. Yeah, exactly.
Skill intensive format right there. Boom, we did it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's, by the way, drink.
Cool.
That's the second use of the word skill intensive.
Was it skill testing or skill intensive?
You said skill intensive.
I know, but like, which one are we drinking to?
Oh, intensive is definitely the right one.
Okay.
Perfect Brainstorm is also up there.
Perfect. Right. Okay. Sure.
Any last thoughts on Gitaxian Probe?
I think we're good. Most of us are pretty happy to see it gone.
Well, I'm happy I don't have to get those signed by Chippy. That was going to be a pain in the ass. So
oh, dude, me too. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
It's so lovely. Like on the unsigned card of the deck. I'm just like, oh, I don't have to worry about this anymore. This is great.
You filthy 1%ers. My Tropical Island has like a bite mark in it. Like I'm playing with like probably not tournament legal, like the ugliest cards possible.
Ben, what is Sneak and Show replacing Probe with? Most Sneak and Show decks can run Probe.
Oh, really?
Maybe, yeah. I used to run one just as a because sometimes you probe and see your opponent has nothing, be like, oh, I don't have to find a fourth rule. I can just cast this. But
yeah.
Also, it's sometimes the 2 life is relevant.
People
argue about that, but preordained, just throw another preordain in if you were running Probe. And
I was gonna say, if you're running one Probe in a deck, that tends to be, I'm running one Probe because I'm not allowed to run 59 cards.
Yeah. Well, the reason I'd only ever run one Probe is it's fine if you draw one of them, but in that deck you never want multiples. It's, extra. It doesn't give you any benefit and it costs you 2 life. But if you run one, then you never have to worry about drawing multiples, and it's not bad if you draw one. So, but I replaced mine with preordained long ago. I'm not running.
Yeah.
Well,
It seems
I
like
think
a
one of
pretty
the
real cost in that deck because of the life totals with Grizzlebrand and Ancient Tombs.
Yeah,
matter.
the bigger
Well, I
cost
think
is not knowing what you're going to draw off the probe in that deck.
Yeah, I think that's one of the actually underrated things about Probe, or that people don't really think about, is that if you a lot of times if you're running a set, you're gonna have a hand with five non-probe cards and 2 probes, and you have to decide whether you're keeping this hand that you don't actually know how it's gonna shape out to be. So it actually might be nice to have preordains or something where you sacrifice some speed, but you get quite a bit more consistency out of your draws.
Yeah.
Or I have a hand where I'm like, oh, I need 1 more land, and I have 2 probes. I hope I get there, or something like that.
Yeah, how many times
to
you
make
draw
that hand,
that?
bonkers. Yeah.
And probed twice and got land, and went, oh shit, this was a fine hand, and now I'm
Yeah, exactly.
just
So
flooded.
that's like somewhat of a cost, right? You're kind of drawing blind with it, so you don't actually. It makes mulligan decisions being a little bit trickier. Although I mean, the upside is like way worth it. Still, it's not like Pro's a bad card or anything. It's just.
Yeah.
I love how we're
It's not
talking about this
completely
card as if
perfect.
it wasn't just bans today. Like we're talking about like the pros and cons and the merits of it. We're like, oh, by the way, playing this card is good for these reasons, bad for these reasons. It's like, yeah, but that's all moot.
I'll say there's
Oh, yeah,
one
yeah,
thing
sure.
I'm sad about with the banning, which is that there's a play someone told me about that was possible in the Bizarro Stormy deck that I will never get to execute now, which is put a Grizzlebrand on top of your library, probe, maintain priority, double crack LED, draw the Grizzlebrand, pay 2 more mana and cast it. And I will never get to do that now.
Yeah, that's wonderful. You can still do it with a brainstorm, though.
Probe also made Vendilion Click a lot worse. That was like my favorite thing about Probe. Just we're doing a eulogy for Probe now. Makes their Vendilion Clicks worse. Anyway, yeah, I guess we should probably move on to Deathrite Shaman.
Let's move on.
Let me add this little 1/2 hybrid mana.
Hold on, hey.
Okay.
I was gonna say we could do live audio of me ripping a Gitaxian probe in half, but my Deathrite Shamans are signed, so.
What's her face? Miranda, 3-Space Monkey, the Maverick player who top 8 I think GP, was it Vegas or Seattle that we were at?
Yeah. We were at Seattle.
Yeah, but she
I don't know
posted
where
on
you
the subreddit some ripped up Deathrite Shamans, and I don't know. I'm not gonna lie, that made me really happy.
They're still like $10.
Oh, I mean, they're like 4. I just bought a playset recently because I tried to get my girlfriend into
Was
Legacy.
it RTR or Eternal Masters? Is there like a basis between them?
They're very similar. I have 4 of each.
RTR ones are $4.39 right now. Eternal Masters are actually more expensive.
Nice.
Especially with the cardstock quality of Eternal Masters, I don't get that at all.
Maybe people are worried about like counterfeit. Yeah, I don't know. As I'm saying,
No counterfeiter is printing cards this shitty.
Yeah.
Well, first thing we've got on our list, what gets significantly worse or dies? This applies to both cards and decks.
I mean, my cynicism about Legacy as a format has died a painful and horrible death today. But I think that's a good thing, all in all. And I'm really happy to see Deathrite Shaman gone. More seriously, Grixis Silver as we know it, I think is a big one. Check pile. Like, I can't see that existing in its current form without Deathrite Shaman. Probably will devolve into bug control and Grixis control, which aren't bad decks by any means. Like, we saw both of those kind of putting up some results even when Deathrite Shaman was around. Like, you would see Grixis control decks that weren't playing Deathrite Shaman.
Back then, it was called Team America.
Team America.
Team America was what was called.
That was called Delver pre Deathrite, wasn't it? Team America.
Team America was like the predecessor to Bug Delver, and I think that was the one with like hymns and Dark Confidants and stuff.
Yeah, that was pre-Delver also.
Oh my god, pre-Delver. How old are you people?
I'm like the historian of the group, apparently.
I think one deck that people are kind of overlooking is Elves. That deck probably abused Deathrite Shaman more than most other decks, but it always felt kind of fair with Elves because like that's such a hokey like engine that they work off of, and it's pretty cute.
You had to jump through so many hoops. It's like, oh, what's the catch? You got to play 40 like 1 mana green creatures in your deck. Like, yeah, that's reasonable. I guess you can have it.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is cool. Like you're tapping and untapping them and drawing cards. This is cool. I can dig it. You know, this is a fun thing to watch going off.
That's the color
but no, I mean, Deathrite Shaman probably does. I don't think it does the most work. I think it's probably still best in some sort of like Grixis, Delver, Soup Shell, but it does a lot of work on that Elf deck just because that deck really wants some sort of mana acceleration on turn 1 and the ability to just generate a ton of mana on any given turn just by virtue of tapping and untapping, I think is pretty valuable for that deck. Also, gets the random upside of just like turning your dead elves into life and things like that. But I don't think it kills elves or anything like that. But I think it definitely hurts the deck quite a bit, and that's kind of collateral damage, I think, to the ban. Kind of like how like Painter lost top, with the miracles. Well, the band's definitely targeted miracles. Same thing.
I think Deathrite and Elves is a perfect example of the color pie in action right there. It doesn't bother people in Elves, even though Elves abuses Deathrite Shaman more than any deck did, because Elves is a green deck. Like, it's supposed to have, 1-drop mana dorks and
well, and you say that, and I know that there have been some people who have said, Deathrite Shaman would be fine if you couldn't spend black to cast it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
The second half of that sentence could be like almost anything. Like, I've heard people say, yeah, it'd be fine if you couldn't spend black to cast it. It'd be fine if it was a 1/1. It'd be fine if it didn't have the eating creature ability. It'd be fine if it didn't have the eating instant sorcerer ability. Like, everything about this card is just pushing from every possible direction.
It's what, the 3rd or 4th best planeswalker ever printed?
Yeah.
I think number 1. If
number 1, yeah.
I think it might be 1. Yeah.
I think Elves is going to be fine, though.
It has a lot of other like dirtles that it can just like play and like tap and untap.
Well, I mean,
I'm not too worried about it.
Just creature elf costing green, being a 1/1 and tapping for green. There are 3 of those, and most elves decks are only playing 1 of the possible 12.
0.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
But
this one, but those elves can't cast Progenitus, so I don't know what to say.
So I mean, the format slows down a bit. All Elves opponents lose Deathrite Shaman, but Elves is still going to be making a 1-drop mana dork on turn 1 most of the time. So where Elves loses a little bit of versatility,
like an Arbor or something, some sort of acceleration. Plus, Deathrite Shaman's very good, but it doesn't need it to go off, consistently on turn 3 or 4 or what have you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in my elf deck, I'd probably, add a couple Llanowar elves and maybe a Birchglow Ranger, and it really doesn't slow it down. It loses a little bit of its reach and stuff. And also now your opponent isn't making a turn 1/1/2 that ramps them so that you can't attack with your elves into it as much.
So I'm actually curious whether elves gets better due to not having to play Bayou.
I think he still.
I think it still probably plays Bayou, right? Just because it needs. I think it wants black just for the decays and hand disruption because its combo matchups are typically pretty terrible.
Play Golgari Charm to go out in style.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think Abrupt Decay is
Virtual
such a
Rangers
versatile answer to so many things in the format. I still think it plays black, to be honest.
Yeah, I think so too. I'd put in a few Birchglow Rangers so that you still have access to a black producing mana dork basically, and then
why not just Elves of the Deep Shadow?
Well, we just broke Legacy there. Elves of the Deep Shadow.
Oh man. Get a Shaman with the pack in for some reach. Yeah. Let's do it.
Okay. Semi-serious question here though. Red splashes have kind of been popping up in Elves. Do you think they continue to do that?
I haven't noticed that.
I think.
Yeah. What are they splashing red for?
Ruric Thar and Blood Moon.
Blood Moon is really freaking good in Elves.
Well, I definitely see Ruric Thar remaining in the deck. Whether or not they keep a red source to cast it is unknown.
Right.
That's a Green Sun target right there.
Yeah. Green Sun Natural Order.
Target, yeah. Although I used to run a single Taiga because of Ruric Thar too, just to have a fetchable, red option as well. Blood Moon, though, sounds crazy. I've never heard that in Elf, but I guess it does make some sense. If they're not fixing with Deathrite anymore, it could be a bigger loss to them than you losing your Cradles.
Well, so what kind of decks would you bring in against, like Blood Moons against? Just like the Dover decks?
Lands, maybe.
I guess.
Yeah. Dover decks and lands, I think, were both really big.
Or any other decks that 3-color control decks, anything like that, whatever crops up in the place of check pile and whatnot.
Yeah,
decks that don't play enough basics.
Yeah,
there you go. Good rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
that's interesting, I guess. So, okay, so what gets hurt from splash damage from Deathrite Shaman being gone? Like,
Well, I think so. Any any graveyard deck is going to get better short term. I think it's very likely that they get worse long term because people have been cheating on graveyard hate for 2 years now and thinking that 4 Deathrite and 2 Surgicals was adequate. And now they're going to go to Tormod's Crypt and Rest in Peace and all these other much better graveyard hates.
PBTDR made a really interesting point in his article. He wrote one yesterday talking about what he wanted to see banned. I think he wrote a follow-up today talking about like what he thinks the repercussions of the bans are going to be. Notably, though, he said lands potentially gets weaker. And it's kind of like almost paradoxical to think about because Deathrite Shaman was good at eating life from the loams, and that was like the card you had to worry about with lands.
Leyline of the Void and Tormod's Crypt.
Eating your lands in general.
Right. And you also had a favorable matchup against Deathrite Shaman decks for the most part. You know, like your Grixis Delver was still very favorable, you know, even though Deathrite Shaman's like a pain in the ass. Like, I don't know, you just eat those decks alive. Punishing Fire loops, Wastelands, hit everything, that kind of nonsense. It was like a favorable match to begin with. And now you're going to see more like, I don't know, decks move away from that. And also like combo decks are going to be coming back a little bit, which kind of had trouble against Grixis Delver. And those are all natural predators with lands.
So are we talking decks that get better or worse due to the...
Currently talking things that get worse, cards and decks.
Hex Depths, I think, is going to go down a little bit. I think one of its big places in the meta is that it was, you know, one of the only combo decks that could just slam a turn 1, turn 2 answer that the Grixis decks couldn't deal with.
So what do you think happens? Do we move more towards what?
Like that, then?
What, do you think we just move more towards like white-based decks now, or what do you think is going to happen?
I think it's if all its natural prey in the metagame goes away, then it gets worse by comparison, even though like in a vacuum it's not worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't really see what you're playing Hex Depths to try and beat anymore. Although you could just adjust the deck and, you know, see what shakes out in the meta and adjust.
The obvious solution here is to play Ice Station Zebra.
Did you just make up some words, Sam? Like,
Ice Station Zebra is the Tin Fins / Dark Depths deck.
ugh.
Oh
Is
god,
that another C-Lab reference? I honestly have no idea. Yeah.
Of course it's a C-Lab reference.
The only C-Lab episode I have seen was the Stimutax episode. So you let me know if there's ever a Stimutax deck, and I'll be all over that one.
Land tax Tin Fins. We'll work on it.
I like it. As far as stuff that gets worse, I mean, yeah, there's the direct ones we talked about, a couple of indirect ones we mentioned as well. I think one important point to make, both for everybody listening to this and to cover our own asses, is that no one really knows where the meta is going to go. Like, we can all make predictions about it and sort of say, like, hey, we kind of think this is where things are going to be going. It's all speculative, though. Like, the way these cards interact with each other, like, there's so many cards in the Legacy, like, pool, and they interact with each other in so many different ways. Like, there's no way for one person to kind of look at the bands and say exactly where things are going to go from there.
There's essentially 2 ways that you try and figure out what the metagame will do, and one is just purely intuitive and like, okay, Deathrite Shaman attacks graveyard decks get better. But another one is historical. Well, do you know how long ago Deathrite Shaman was printed? Because I just pulled it up and I have the answer.
2012?
2012?
It was indeed 2012, 6
Woo!
years ago.
Wow.
And 6 years ago's Legacy metagame looks dramatically different.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, this is going to have a much bigger effect on the Legacy meta than the top ban did. The top ban got rid of the top dog, and I mean, didn't even get rid of it. It rebirthed and is now a deck again. But this is just a absolutely massive power vacuum, I think. I'm not going to sit here and try and make a prediction as to what is going to, you know, what the meta is going to look like.
You say it. Top got rid of the top dog, and this is getting rid of more. For comparison, just MTG Goldfish, it's getting rid of deck number 1, number 2, number 5, number 8, and number 10, number 11, number 12, and number 13.
I think there's a really interesting point to consider there. I'm relatively new as far as Legacy is concerned. I started playing in like 2014 maybe, so like Deathrite Shaman's been out for a while. the only bans I've seen, which off the top of my head are Treasure Cruise, Dig Through Time, and Sensei's Dividing Top, have all been pointed at neutering the best deck. And what I mean by that is like, I mean, obviously, I think the Deathrite Shaman ban and the Gitaxian Pro ban were both made in response to the numbers Grixis Silver was putting up. But it's like Treasure Cruise getting banned stops Blue-Red Delver and the Blue-Red Delver from being decks. Dig Through Time getting banned at the time was aimed at Mono Blue Omnitel. Sensei's Dividing Top, even though it hit Painter, even though Sensei's Dividing Top hits Painter and Doomsday and Cloud Post, it was aimed at Miracles. And so like what we're seeing like in those cases is like, I don't know, as Ben put it, he described it like as a power vacuum, you know, it's like, hey, top seed is open, you know? And the meta doesn't really change that much if Cloud Post or Imperial Painter kind of lose their like, I don't know, their grease and wheels, so to speak. But like Deathrite Shaman getting banned, it's like, yeah, the number 1 and 2 decks. Sam, you were just going down a list, like 1, 2, 5, 8, 10, and 13. We're seeing these like, I don't know, these openings just kind of appear.
And to be clear, these aren't necessarily decks that will be killed, because like Elves will still exist and like Bug will still exist, but they are all playing 4 of this card.
Right. And so it's going to be like impossible to see how everything changes, because instead of just kind of analyzing like, okay, one deck at the top is being removed, what takes its place in results because of that? It's now like a bunch of different decks in the metagame are being neutered, and some of them hit more hard than others. Now what's going to happen?
The other thing is, like, say, take Dig Through Time, and I do disagree with you a bit, Sean, that Dig Through Time was really just targeted at Omnitel, because that was, everything was playing Dig Through Time. So it just pushed everything. I was
going to say the exact same thing. Every deck that was playing blue was playing some number of Treasure Cruise or Dig Through Time.
And Omnitel was the hilariously ridiculous deck, but like all these Delver decks, Miracles, all of them were abusing Dig Through Time too. The difference here, I think, is that when they banned Dig Through Time, all those decks kind of still were decks. They just got a little worse and, you know, a little less consistent. Whereas like a deck like Check Piles, it can't function without Deathrite. It's done, I think.
You know, I was going to say what dies is probably 4-color piles. The only way 4-color piles continue to exist is either they're Bant-based, playing Noble Hierarch and then splashing, like, you know, splashing for just Leovold or just Lightning Bolt, or they're not playing blue at all and they're playing Life from the Loam.
I'm just going to add. I'm going to add. I play the Dark Bant list with 4 Noble Hierarchs and 4 Deathrites. Despite having 8 mana dorks, that is the worst mana base I have seen of any deck in Legacy.
Have you played Check Pile?
Yeah. Did you see the Check Pile list I took to Eternal Weekend? It played no basics. It played like I had to go buy more duels.
Like, no basics isn't like the biggest steal in Legacy, but I don't know. You're right. I haven't played Check Pile, so it might not be the worst mana base.
How about this? Check Pile played no basics, and some versions of it were playing a Blood Moon.
That was the thing that pushed me from, I don't know, if Deathrite might be okay, to ban this freaking card as soon as I saw that. Yeah, so I think this is the biggest Legacy take-up we've seen in a very long time, maybe ever, in terms of a card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely since I've started playing, this is the biggest shake-up.
Yeah.
I'm trying to Misstep would be mine.
Well, still, that was just every deck was playing Misstep, right? Just,
actually, I've got a bigger one. I had just started playing Legacy when Mystical Tutor got banned.
Oh, yeah, I can see.
Yeah. You guys know the thing about Misstep? People joke about Misstep. They're like,
card's fine, right?
Talking about Tutor or Misstep?
Yeah, Tutor. For Storm, I think it'd be fine.
Not Tutor. So the thing about Misstep, people talk about the card and they're like, oh, it's totally fine because it counters itself. And they're like speaking very facetiously about it. And they're like, ha 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 ha, get it? Because that's a really bad card design. And at the same time, they're completely oblivious to like, I have 1 Deathrite. My opponent has 2 Deathrites. Turns out the best way to handle an opposing Deathrite is having
counter
2
itself.
Yeah, it's having 2 Deathrites in your own. It's like, well, I can't put this mana with mine. I can't eat anything with mine. The other guy's just holding his up and just using them like defensively.
By the way, do y'all know the conspiracy theory about the Mystical Tutor banning?
Conspiracy theory?
No.
Was it the gentleman's agreement thing?
No, it's that it wasn't banned because it was too good in like Storm and stuff. It said it was banned because it was banned almost exactly 2 years before Miracles started being printed, which would have been way too powerful with Mystical Tutor.
You're saying they knew it was going to get printed and they banned it preemptively?
They said now is a good time for us to ban this thing that will definitely be a problem once these other cards that we have in the line are printed.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that.
That'd be some horse shit. Like, you guys got one card in hand, you like end the turn.
Mystical Tutor, go get Terminus.
Yeah, and then like I don't know, even the same turn, just like Mystical Tutor, grab Terminus, tap top, draw this 1 mana instant speed like Wrath. It's just like, nah, get out of here. Sorry.
Oh God, no, please.
Can you imagine that? We would all be rooting for True Names in that world. Like that would be some degenerate like creature removal right there.
Anything else about what gets worse?
I'm trying to think about, like, I don't know. You guys have made some really good points. I hadn't really thought a lot about it. Elves was one that I hadn't really considered that much. But
so,
yeah, go ahead.
I think maybe Death and Taxes, like or like the classic white, like mono white Death and
Oh
Taxes,
yeah,
that's a little bit worse too.
You think it gets worse?
Worse.
I think so.
I
guess it depends like what level you're going at. I think there's gonna be a lot less Delver and just okay. I realized Death and Taxes was not super against Deathrite Shaman just because it played around sort of the mana denial plan that they had.
Okay.
But I think overall like Grixis Delver wasn't like a bad matchup for that deck. I would even say it was favorable.
So okay, thinking about it, I think there are 3 levels to how TNT approaches like the metagame now. And the first is like Deathrite Shaman is banned. That card was good against DNT. DNT gets better. And I think I think that much is true. Having Wastelands and Thalias and Ports is obviously better when not everybody's running a Mandatory. Now, a level above that is what you're talking about when you say that a lot of those decks that like with greedier mana bases, I guess you're talking about like Grixis Delver and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, a lot of those are leaving the format. And so we might be potentially moving to some faster combo, which is better against DNT. The point that
I think it depends what kind of fast combo, right? Like I think Reanimator is still kind of bad against DNT.
Right.
Or at least Blue Black certainly is.
And like Sneak and Show is not very
good
against DNT.
They're not playing Magic anyway.
The one thing I think is like a really like a big like notch in DNT's favor though. I think there's not going to be a home for K Command. And that card was such a ranching for that deck. That I mean, like you saw Bara, yeah, and
I spent
like
$12 on that card.
Just cut some forge mistakes. Like,
yeah, like Bara and Phil Gallagher, they're just like, no, these are a liability now. Like we can't afford to run like the 4/4 Vigilant Lifelinker that comes in for free. It's like, what are you talking about? Like that's the best card in the deck. It's like, yeah, not the best card. It's quite good, but like they were thinking about cutting artifacts and stuff, and it's like now that there's no home for K Command, like I don't know. I think like. Not only DNT, but like those weird Stoneblade decks and stuff like that, I think those get a little better as well.
I think those decks get better too, but I was just thinking in DNT in terms of I think if lands sees less play and Elves sees relatively more play, those are both kind of bad things for DNT. I guess on the flip side, Storm is way worse. So like I think Storm was always a little bit favorable for DNT, or at least Ant was for sure. And I think now it becomes significantly better for DNT.
Yeah.
So but yeah, I mean I don't know. Overall, it seems like maybe neutral to not super for it, but that's just my view. I could be completely wrong. It's a lot of speculating, and like you said, we don't really know where things are going to go.
Right. We have no idea. We're all just talking out of our asses at this point.
So, real quick, on the note of what I had just mentioned, I will point out that Kolagon's command is actually $22 American right now.
Get the.
It's
cheaper, right? Wasn't like it had a 3-handle before, right? Because it's a modern thing.
Yeah, it's a
3-handle at one point. Yeah.
So the thing about Death and Taxes, I think, is it was good against the Delver decks, but Death and Taxes is really good at adjusting to a known meta. So I think just like after the top ban, in the short term, we're going to see Death and Taxes just completely fall off the map. And then once this meta starts to shake out in 3 or 6 months, then you're going to see Death and Taxes come back real strong once it knows what it's playing against. I would not take Death and Taxes to a tournament on Saturday. You're going to get stomped because you have no idea what to expect.
Right.
Basically.
Or you like a challenge. I don't know.
I guess now might be a good time to point out that Phil Gallagher of Death and Taxes University, or Fraven University, Death and Taxes FTW on the Legacy subreddit, is streaming a discussion about DNT tomorrow morning, and you guys should definitely check that out. Yeah.
I'll probably World Cup on tomorrow morning.
Sorry?
There's World Cup on tomorrow morning. I'm watching that shit.
Sam, priorities. No, I don't know.
What time? I'm probably at work.
9:15 Eastern, so that's like 8:15 for us in Central.
God.
Dude, I can't. Okay, so I can't watch World Cup like at work, but I'll probably be tuning into this because I don't know.
Yeah,
We're talking about this. I am actually really curious. Like, this is a very I don't know. 4 guys who don't play D&T talking about D&T feels very much.
I'll say,
exactly.
I think Ben is right. Like D&T has so many answers to questions that once you know what the questions are, it can be a lot better. But if you don't know what the questions are, you might just have a lot of dead cards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
4 Evokers, let's go.
Like, I mean, I could definitely see. We're gonna get to what's better, but I could totally see. Everyone expects Reanimator to get better. Be like, fuck it, I'm gonna up my recruiter count and I'm gonna run Containment Priest in the main.
Well, what about that new M19? Is that what we're on card? It's like a 2-mana sack to the 2-mana flying 2/1 Tormod's crypt, right?
Yeah, that's hot.
I haven't looked at the new set at all.
Yeah,
it's a 2/1 flying Tormod's crypts for 2.
Yeah.
We haven't up on a body yet, right?
Yeah.
That hasn't been printed yet.
Yeah, that's new.
Yeah.
I mean, people wanted their like rest in peace hate bear, which I'm really glad doesn't exist because that seems a little bit too good.
Yeah,
but I think Tormod's crypt is like a pretty good one where it's like you can.
I agree.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Also, 2 and 5 for 2. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like being an old person, but this seems like a good enough rate. But maybe I'm wrong. I'm probably wrong.
But
I
2/1
print's probably not good enough.
Yeah. No, flyers are real. Like, especially in an equipment deck, you just go like,
oh yeah.
I don't know. Everyone's been branched before, but the end of turn Snapcaster made remove your blocker.
I mean, it also blocks over. That's like a real thing, right? Like, even though it trades up 1 mana, like it does like block over and also have residual value against random decks.
I mean, that's the thing though. It's like you play a singleton in the main deck as like a silver bullet for tutor, and it's not terrible. Even if you're not using it for like its ability, it's still pretty good at like, as you said, like blocking.
The body's fine, I think.
Yeah.
It's just a slightly worse Sarah Avenger in the worst case scenario.
Which is a slightly worse Sarah Angel if you think about it. So this card's really good.
Nice. All right, getting a little off topic, getting into set reviews, which we're not doing. Any last thoughts on what gets worse?
I think we cleaned this one out pretty good. Do you guys have any thoughts? I can't think of anything else.
No, I can't really think of anything else either.
Not offhand.
All right, let's go with what gets better. I'm going to start because I want to talk about like my favorite deck ever that we've already joked about in our group chat multiple times today.
Just realized what gets worse, but a lot of offbeat bug decks like Food Chain and Allurin, I think have a really hard time surviving. Yeah, but who cares about those players?
I think those decks can probably do the thing I'm about to say.
All right.
Which is, I think, what gets better is Stoneforge Mystic and every deck that plays it.
Sure.
Because now you are not pushed into doing all of the things that Deathrite Shaman decks want to do. So, like, you will probably see Real Deal Esper Blade come back. I might get to see my favorite deck come back, which is Bant.
Bants?
Oh yeah, you know that after I kill everyone with Tin Fins, I'll be coming with like 3 Rocks War Monks with Swords of Light and Swords of Fire and Ice on them. So be prepared.
So one specific Stoneforge deck I'm thinking of is Blue-White Stoneblade. Since it runs back to basics, that just got much better. And the Stoneforge Mystic on its own just got better.
Yeah, that deck's had legs for a long time.
Been
quite underplayed for how good it is, even in the past.
Notably, I think this actually frees up a lot of the I don't know. With Grixis Silver is the best deck. I don't think you could play like Esper Stoneblade or like Blue-Eye Red Stoneblade, but you can actually free up a couple of those, I think 3-color Stoneblade variants. And those have access to, the red one in particular has access to Blood Moon, which I think is a really, really good card. Not to say that Back to Basics isn't, but I think they're doing different things.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Blue-White Red with Blood Moon is similar to Blue-White with Back to Basics in that regard.
Yeah.
But the meta slowing down is going to be huge for Stoneblade. It always just seemed like it was like, half a turn too slow for the Grixis piles and whatnot.
It's like nice battle school. Swing with True Name and Delver for 6. Good game.
The card I'm really excited to see that hasn't been in a Stoneforge deck in quite some time due to Deathrite Shaman is Lingering Souls.
Oh,
Man, going real deep.
cards are
Now.
eating.
Yeah, dude, Modern John can't beat that card.
It's Innistrad uncommon, right?
Yeah.
Card is
Bandit,
great.
No,
constructed.
Dark Ascension. It's one of the saving graces of Dark Ascension.
It's like the third most valuable card, and it's an uncommon.
I'm sure
Is
there's
it really?
some EDH nonsense that's more expensive.
Well, I think
So-
Huntmaster might be, and then I don't know.
I mentioned earlier that I could see there still being some 4-color shit boxes that are Noble Hierarch based, and I could see playing a blue-white Stoneforge deck with Noble Hierarchs and a little bit of green, and then like 2 black sources for Leovold.
Lingering Souls is it Dark Ascension? It's not on the list here.
I think so.
I like that we skipped straight past my terrible idea.
No. Okay.
Non-hallowed is the most expensive Dark Ascension card, which must be an EDH card, because I don't even know what it does.
Sam,
You got Sorin, Lord of Innistrad, Huntmaster, Grafdigger's Cage.
yeah. I forgot these were all in Dark Ascension. I stand corrected. Sam, I'm all over Ben's in your pants, but I think this is important, so give me a second to hear Ben's financial analysis on Dark Ascension.
Sorry.
I mean, I think one thing I know about Noble Hierarch is it is way worse than Deathrite Shaman. Like, yeah, it's a mana dork, and yeah, Exalted can be relevant, but like the ability to like draw a 1-drop into an empty board and just have it be a threat that has to be dealt with immediately is such a huge cost. Whereas Noble Hierarch, I don't really care.
The Exalted applies to itself. It attacks as a 1.
No, you're right. I'm sorry.
So I guess Noble Hierarch is a better mana dork. Deathrite Shaman is a better
Planeswalker. It's a freaking Planeswalker.
It's a better mana dork. It makes red and black mana.
Yeah, but it requires fetch lands to do that. Well,
But that's fine. Like that's not.
That's
not
about the
cost most of
smallest
time.
deck building cost in the format right
You
there.
call Noble Hierarch like a more reliable mana dork. I think that's a fair way to put it.
Yeah, fair
Yeah,
enough.
that's reasonable.
It did just become the best mana dork in the format, though. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot more.
But
yeah, I'm really upset about that because I was going to buy a bunch this weekend.
It's not one replacement. It's like a 70.
Anybody want to buy a set of Old Border Judge promos?
Ooh, hang on to
There's
those.
RPTQ promo also. I think that's
No, fuck that.
one. I
No.
don't know.
Old Border Original Arts Judge promo.
All right, here's the question about Noble Hierarch, and this goes out to Ben. When we stream on Friday, if we're going to play Survival, we have to buy Noble Hierarchs, and they're $100 a set.
What? Are they really? On Moto?
Online.
Oh. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, we have some. We can lend this to you. That's not a problem.
Oh, hey, there we go.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
So we're streaming Survival on Friday.
Do you guys not play Deathrite in Vintage?
You want Noble Hierarch in this deck.
Okay. I have no idea what it is, so I'll take your word for it.
It's garbage. It's going to be great.
Yeah, don't spend $100 on garbage. Like, it always sounds really great. You tell yourself that you're going to like spend a bunch of money to buy some cards, play a deck. It's going to be awful, but you might just win and discover the next big thing. And then you just go
We're talking about $100 on garbage. Like, how many garbage cards are in front of you on your desk right now?
Honestly, oh, my webcam's off center, but let me show y'all. I'm in the middle of organizing my collection. Ah, shit, can't do it.
Nice shirt, Sean.
Thank you. Shameless plug, Lone Star Lhurgoyfs. Tokens
.com.
like this. Artifacts like this.
Yeah.
There's a stack with a Bayou on it, and then like cloud posts underneath. So I don't really know what that is.
Sounds like Ken's wet dream.
It's really bad. Like I don't know. I started organizing everything, and it's been so long. I just don't know what's on my desk anymore.
Here we go. Unlimited signed STP. That's there's a City of Traders, no sleeve. Tundra,
nice.
Tropical Island, City of Traders. Here's a Chinese Mox Pearl.
Chinese Mox. Oh, I see. Chinese.
So
Do
anyway,
you want a small desk, Sam? I think your desk is more valuable than mine.
No, my desk is terrible. There's a reason the webcam is very high up.
All right.
This is excellent content for all the people who are listening.
It's like Bo Burnham starts off his set with like 7 minutes of mime jokes. There's like an audio recording of it. It's as dumb as it sounds.
So what else gets better with no Deathrite Shaman?
Right. This is a legacy podcast.
So, I mean, I think we talked a little bit about Reanimator just because I think one of the ways Rick Stover kind of kept the Reanimator decks in check was that it could pair Deathrite Shaman with cheap disruption, and that maybe gave them enough fits to, have some problems. So I think at least in the beginning, Reanimator decks become pretty good. Yeah, I think Dredge also becomes quite good.
Let's just say combo in general. Combo in general just gets better because of how good Grixis was against combo.
I think that's true in any new format. Combo gets better because when you don't know what the questions are, it's better to be asking questions than providing answers.
Well, that's true. I am talking long term as well, though. I think we're going to see more combo. I mean, combo's been kind of dead in Legacy for like 6 months or so here. I can't even think.
Small rant here. Can I just grinds my gears moment? When I started playing, the budget decks were Burn and D&T. The budget decks are now Black Red Reanimator, Turbo Deaths, and those can lead to some pretty miserable play experiences. I don't know if you guys have felt this way, but when I first started playing Legacy, we had a bunch of D&T players all starry-eyed and optimistic about the format and oh, this is a great deck, I was told, and if I keep playing with it, I'll get better. And then now it's just I don't know, 3 out of 12 people are on Black Red Reanimator. It's I want to play Maverick today.
I was going to say, Reanimator is also a good go-to for anyone in an unknown format where Graveyard Hate is getting weaker because it is very herp-derp. You can play that deck. If you read all the cards, you can play that deck at 70%.
Yeah. If you don't read all the cards, you can probably play it at. Anyway, but I don't know. That's one thing that's really.
I'll tell you, back in my day, the budget deck was Merfolk, and then you picked any color to buy blue duels in, and you splash that color, and you could splash any color in Merfolk.
Okay. See, that sounds awesome. I'm all down for that. I want white swords and plowshares in my Merfolk deck. I want red for bolts, red for Blood Moon. I don't know. But
the standard was that you got Trops and you got Termagoyf, which was widely considered to be the best Merfolk ever printed at the time.
So one more deck that I think gets better, that is a little bit off the beaten trail, Enchantress.
Still might be.
The format's a little slower, has a little more time, and the nail in the Enchantress coffin was the printing of Leovold, which I think we're going to be seeing a lot less of in the future. I don't think we're heading for a mono Enchantress format or something here, but I think it might be a viable deck again, which will be nice.
Yeah,
I have Sarah Sanctum's and Modes.
I think it's definitely a real deck.
What's that?
If the format's slowing down, I think it's a real deck. I think on paper, some of the issues with it is that Sarah Sanctum has kind of spiked a bit already. So if you're unless you have the cards, you're really willing to kind of invest into a deck that plays a bunch of cards that no other deck does. It'll be hard to kind of, put that deck together in paper and just take it to FNM or whatever.
All right. Well, I have a deck list pulled up, and it's $2,900 in paper. 800 of that is Moat. 130 of that is for Leyland Sanctity, and then you need 3 Savannahs, 3 Sarah Sanctums.
The Sarah Sanctum is I think the other one that's kind of hard to find.
I think Moat is probably worse because it has even less utility.
Oh, that's true. I mean, I guess Miracles can maybe still play against Eldrazi or something, but it's not the best. Yeah, I think that's a really good idea, Ben, on Enchantress, by the way. I was actually thinking about that earlier today as well. That's kind of like a roguey sort of deck that I think a lot of people aren't really that familiar with unless they've really been playing Legacy for a while or have somebody who actually plays it regularly. So I think that could be a pretty secret dark horse deck, at least in the beginning.
Yeah, now that I'm looking at this deck list, I'm going to be sending out some request to borrow cards pretty soon.
Yeah, exactly.
So I got to tell you, one of my favorite Magic moments was I went to brunch with some people and had some adult beverages and then went to Magic. And I was playing against a guy on Enchantress, and it was the first time I had ever played against Enchantress. And after the third time that he played a card that I had to read, I very loudly said, "I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't know what any of your cards do."
It's basic forest. No one plays that card.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think I've ever played against Enchantress in my life. Not the red-white version anyway, or not the green-white version anyway. But
Oh, it's fun.
It's like red, white, Enchantress. Oh my god.
no, not red-white. Green-blue was the absolute killer. Some guy brought it against me. I was playing Infect, and it's like, when you play seal removal, like, yeah, we'll skip to that. That card.
So yeah, I think I'm going to be building this. I have all the money cards. I have none of the dollar cards.
So another I think is Rug Delver.
For sure.
Yes, yeah. That one's been talked about a lot, but I think that's a good point. We definitely have not mentioned it here, and yeah, I'll be happy to see that come back.
I think it's the best Delver deck, right, at the moment, at least, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Hey Ben, do you remember when I sold you my Tarmogoyfs for $50?
I think it was 60, wasn't it? But anyway, yeah.
Do you want to rewind that?
Tarmogoyfs back up now.
It's like 80 or 90 in Future Sight.
Oh, I haven't used them. I'm about to sleep them up. Well, are they up to 90 now? Jeez, I got the right time.
But, you guys are crazy. Just play Hooting Mandrills is the future. Just play that card instead, right?
Well, no, because if we're gonna play Hooting Mandrills, we're gonna play the All Monkey deck with Curdape, Hooting Mandrills, and Hidden Gibbons. And we're gonna
Gibbons.
Oh yes, give me some Gibbons.
Dude, you don't want Moxie to like shoot their Chalice of the Voids? Come on, bro.
So we should talk about Hooting Mandrills though. I think the modern rug decks were playing modern as in current, not the format. We're playing Hooting Mandrills because of Fatal Push. Is that right?
Yeah, it was a response to check pile. You could side out your Delvers, and you would be playing 4 Mongooses, 4 Hooting Mandrills, and 2 True Names as your threats. And you would
removal.
Exactly, like all of their spot removals completely blanked.
Fatal Push is gone, and Abrupt Decay can't hit it anymore.
Right.
But you're not relying on your graveyard because if you're playing green, you're probably playing Deathrite Shaman. Yeah, anything that relies on the graveyard gets better, but that's a little like any delve spell gets better. I had not considered that.
Trample is not like an irrelevant keyword either.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in a format where, in just a generic sense, Tarmogoyf is just pretty much better than Hooting.
Well, when you have like a bunch of like young pyromancers and tokens and stuff all around,
true,
or even True Nemesis, to be honest, right? Like a 4-power trample creature is really relevant in a deck that's trying to deal 20 before dying. Barely dealing it before it dies, right? So
I was gonna say, I think most decks are trying to deal 20 before they die.
Well, no, but what was the analogy with the Delver deck? It's like you're riding a bicycle in a race, and it's like falling apart, and you're just hoping you just cross the finish line before you fall off. And it's like kind of
that's not Rogue Delver. Rogue Delver is like the turn 1, like hold up a land, pass turn, stifle your fetch. Like it's like a bicycle ran you over, went in reverse, ran you over again, like ran you over again, and like you're dying, but it's happening very slowly. There's nothing you can do about it because you're so crippled and injured by their wastelands and stifles that you just let it happen as a nimble mongoose nibbles on you.
If you're on Rug and they turn the corner, it's like the worst feeling because my card draw is terrible.
Yeah, like
all of your draws.
I had the last time I played against, not the last time, a couple times ago I played against Rug Delver. A guy let me resolve a fetch land just so he could like submerge my Noble Hierarch, and then he wastes it immediately. I'm just like, yeah, we're done here. This is disgusting.
But yeah, I think so. So with the predicted death of the check pile and Grixis Delver decks here, I think Tarmogoyf becomes the new, not new. It's going to take Mandrill spot again there in Rug Delver.
I think so too.
Well,
Again,
I think it's hard to find a deck that plays Fatal Push in this format. Like there aren't that many black decks that have like nothing else to do, right? Like Storm is not really playing Fatal Push unless it's putting it to the board against like a Hate Bear or something. But like, unless Bug Control or something becomes like an actual deck, it's hard for me to see any decks that are actually actively playing Fatal Push.
Hold on. I know what card Storm is playing over Fatal Push. Deathmark.
There's like a Braid.
Ooh.
Deathmark is there. You can wish for Deathmark. A Braid is quite good actually.
Yeah,
Chalice and Hate Bears.
But like, hold on. Why are we talking about Deathrite Shaman being a problem for Tarmogoyf? Because like that was a really big reason why Tarmogoyf stopped seeing as much play. Like I think Fatal Push kind of put the nail in the coffin, but like being able to like eat cards out of graveyards like pretty regularly was a pretty big reason why
But I mean, once you're playing a deck with Underground Seeds, that's also just like playing BD creatures. Like Fatal Push is like such a low cost thing to do to add, right? If you're just playing a proactive deck, whereas I don't think there's like a proactive deck playing Underground Seeds at the moment, at least.
So can we all
except
drink?
For maybe except for maybe some sort of like bugged over, but I haven't seen like a Team America thing without Deathrite Shaman, in like 6 years. I don't know how good it's going to be now, but I mean, we'll see.
Sure.
Can we all drink to the prediction of there being more Lhurgoyfs being played in the format?
Here.
I need a different liquor for that.
Need is a strong word.
Did I get a good recording on that?
Yeah, this is a very, very nice pop noise.
So another deck that I think might be a bit better now is actually Burn. And if there's a lot more combo, it won't be. But I think if the format starts to like fair out, or there's a lot more miracles, especially like a non-counterbalanced version of miracles, I actually think Burn becomes not great, but I think it becomes like a better deck than it has been. And I think it's perennially like underrated anyway as a deck, but I think that becomes quite good.
It's interesting. It's losing some good prey, I think. But also Deathrite Gone is good for it.
It's losing a must bolt that gains life.
Right. And the format's slowing down a bit, and Burn is not slowing down.
Right.
So,
and you can argue maybe Price of Progress is like a little bit worse, but that card even at like 70% is really good. So, whatever.
Yeah. If the format speeds up a little bit because you're starting to see Reanimator and
then it's terrible.
Just terrible.
Even then, a lot of times Burn beats Reanimator on like Bolt You Fire Blast in response to your Grizzlebrand activation.
Just don't activate Grizzlebrand.
Wait, are you activating Grizzlebrand? I think just leave it in play and use one again.
Were you guys there when Nick double activates a Grizzlebrand, loses 14 life against Trevor on Rogue Delver, gets like double stifled, and then he like swings with it, gains 7, and then activates it again, gets stifled a third time, and then Trevor's untaps and kills him?
Keep going, Sean. I'm almost there.
I mean, sorry, but that's it. That's the whole story right there. But
that's ugly.
Yeah.
Did he kill him with Tarfire?
I don't know. Just
I know that's Trevor's favorite spice.
Speaking of which, I don't think it'll be good, but I really want goblins to be good. I really, really do.
Oh, I ordered goblins.
Oh, man.
Yeah, you're definitely not alone in that.
Yeah.
When was the last time you remember goblins being good?
I don't think I ever played Legacy when goblins were good.
Look, I played Infect for a really long time. I don't think I can beat goblins.
I think the last time I remember goblins being good, like a thing that you needed to know how to play against, was shortly before you could misstep Lackey.
No, but the deck actually does, a fair amount of things, right? Like, I think it can outfare a lot of the fair decks. It draws more cards than most of their decks in the format once its engine is up and running. It's very good against cards like Terminus.
Now, I think there's a reason to say, let's make goblins not be good. That way they can unpan Recruiter.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Recruiter is like banned for time constraints, right? Like if it
no,
took, like
I have proof that is not true.
Okay.
The proof that is not true is there is a card that is the exact same but says a different creature type.
Dwarven Recruiter.
Dwarven Recruiter is the exact same card.
No. Hear me out. There's not enough dwarves. You can't.
Chameleon Colossus. Come on, there are dwarves.
All right, now you got me. Crib Swap. That's a dwarf. You're right. You're right.
Nameless inversion. Yeah. So I don't know. Like, I don't think it's actually going to be good, but I think it has a lot of interesting tools at its disposal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can kind of toolbox the deck a little bit, kind of like Death and Taxes, to try and beat up on something specific that you're trying to play against. That said, its combo matchups are not the best, although they're not as bad as people think they are either. Like there are a lot of outs that Goblins does have to combo decks, but it's not as clean as something like that.
A lot of Goblins outs to combo decks are in their splash colors too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. That's
true. What was really good for that deck that kind of got glossed over because we were like in a stale metagame, I think, was Goblin Chain Whirler.
So I agree that if it hits play, it's super. But the issue is that it costs triple red, which actually makes it very difficult to cast because it doesn't get any reductions from the war chiefs, nor does it like you're playing like ports and wastelands and stuff. So actually achieving a lot of red mana sometimes is
it's like difficult.
It's like a road bump on what you're trying to do.
Right.
And like honestly, if you have a hasty goblin like Lord in play, like Sharpshooter is almost as good anyway.
Yeah. There's also a new printing that the Goblins players are been talking about in M19 of a. It's like a 4-mana 3/3 Lord or something that you can tap 2 goblins to destroy an artifact. I guess.
And why are you looking at new cards?
Artifact. I don't know.
We haven't gotten to our set review yet.
We haven't gotten to our.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying, as dorky as Goblins is, like it actually does apply a lot of pressure to fair decks.
Oh yeah,
and yeah, and it has the tools to beat like it's not like Stoneforge Mystic means like end of the game or anything. Like, it has tools to kind of deal with those things. So I don't know. Like, it may not be good. It probably won't be, but I really want it to be good.
Yeah, I think it really just hinges on how bad that combo matchup is.
Yeah.
Because if we can get past that, then it seems like reasonably well positioned as a fair deck.
Yeah, I think Death and Tax is still probably problematic, but any other sort of like fairish strategy, I think it's ahead. I was gonna ask you, Sean, because I was thinking, in fact, would get a lot better after this ban too. But I mean, obviously, I think you've probably thought about it more, and you probably have a much better idea of how that deck is positioned. But it seems to me like much better.
I mean, losing Probe is honestly not as bad as people would be led to believe. Like, yeah, it guarantees you a couple free wins here and there, but like most of the time, you don't really need it. Like. When your opponent taps out, you just go for the kill, Or like if you're paying attention, you can know like, okay, if my opponent has Swords of Plowshares, he would have played it right there. He probably doesn't have one. If my opponent had a Forceful, he probably used it here. He didn't have one. Like Probe in a lot of ways, I think was similar to how Sneak and Show used the card. It was just kind of a crutch. And I think it was a little bit better in Infect because of like the guaranteed free win potential. But like, I don't know. I also just don't think it hurts the deck too much. You might play like one copy of Peak if you want to be cute.
Seems bad though, right? Like tapping mana like out at any point seems really bad.
But it's like instant speed, Like it would just be like end of turn Peak, target you, look at your hand, draw a card. Is not really the worst thing. I think like Ponder in particular. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, just Ponder in particular feels like really bad in that deck, just because like you have to pay mana at sorcery speed. But it's like, for example, if someone wants to like bowl your elf and you're like, okay, I have an Invigorate, but like I don't want to use it, I'll response Peak, look at your hand. If that's your last bolt, then like okay, I'll use an Invigorate here and then protect my creature, untap, keep going to town. From a metagame perspective, though, I do think it's kind of poised for a comeback. I think like Infect was always the Delver deck that was bad against other Delver decks, and it was good against combo decks. Not to say that Delver like wasn't good against combo decks, but it's like it was very good at like. I think it had better matchups, like especially against like Ant and like the slower like Sneak Each Other, that kind of stuff. It wasn't like horribly favored, but it was like a Delver deck, and then it got to play Permission, and it also had a fast clock that could just turn into a combo kill. So it's like if you draw either half of the deck, like all of the pump spells, like with creatures, or all of the counter magic, you're probably going to win that game. Whereas like the combo decks are kind of like, they just have to assemble like A plus B or whatever, versus like 2 of A and 2 of B. I think Miracles coming back is also really good for Infects. That matchup has always been like, I don't want to say it was like favorable for Infects, maybe a little bit, but like with Top and Instant Speed Terminus being gone, I think that really helps a lot. So that's something else that I think will really help the deck.
So I don't really want to get back into Probe, but it seems like a lot of the decks that play Probe don't actually need it in the sense that it doesn't kill them. But I think what it will do is it will make the difference between very good players and less good players more apparent, I think. Right.
Well, I mean, that's kind of like what they were like. We mentioned a little bit before when we were talking about Probe, but it's really hard to sort of quantify its exact impact on the metagame. And I think they did the best thing they could have done, which is just come out and say, this is a poorly designed card. It leads to some like not fun, uninteractive play experiences, and just kind of ban it on that account. Like you kind of notice.
That's what it did for Modern, right? But I guess Modern, whatever. And that's roughly the justification they used in Modern.
What's Modern?
When they banned it.
Yeah, like talking about Deathrite Shaman, they talk about Grixis Stellar 55% win rate against non-mirror matches, and then like has 11 out of 16 and the top 16 of GP Birmingham, they just sort of cite all these like, numbers and stuff. Whereas like Gitaxian Probe is just like, there's no numbers here. They're just like, yeah, this is a design mistake. We didn't really like it. We don't think anybody likes it.
I do dislike the it was X out of Y argument in any legacy ban and restricted, because somewhere in Japan 4 years ago, 32 for 32 Brainstorm, not a beep.
Right.
So I don't like that as a talking point, especially from Watson.
Right.
Also, at a high level, if someone told you the tier 1 deck in the format was 55% against the non-mirror field, I actually don't think that's an issue. Does anyone else feel that way?
Seems pretty high.
55
against the entire field.
Yeah.
Against for a tier 1, like for the best deck in the format, I don't think it's like high enough to be like,
because the average...
you can argue there are other factors too that lead to it, right? Which is fine. And I'm not saying that Threat Shaman being banned is a bad thing. Actually, I'm happy that it is, but it just seems to me like if someone just told you like, I don't know, like in standard or something, like there's like some tier 1 deck and it's like 55% against the non-mirrors, I don't think that's like so terrible.
I actually completely agree, because like mathematically, on average, decks win 50% of their matches, and some of the decks are 60 basic lands. So there's like any deck that's going to be reasonably good is going to be well over 50%, right?
Yeah.
I
know if the number was like 80 or something, I mean that's like a different conversation, right? But I think 55 itself is like not necessarily that bad per se.
I think we're underrating how much 55 really is.
I also think that it's a confluence of things. It's 55%. It's the homogenization. It's a lot of things coming together at once.
I mean, Magic Online's also been really inbred to even beat Grixis Delver. So in real life, it's probably a lot better than that 55%. Because also, reflects.
Right. Magic Online is one kind of weird aspect of the legacy metagame, which I don't know. I think for a long time people were kind of crying that or saying that it was like not indicative of the actual legacy metagame, but like I don't know, if most of the games of legacy in total are being played on Magic Online, then how can you say it's not indicative of the legacy metagame?
Yeah.
I mean, Magic Online is almost like everyone it's like a 400-person FNM that just fires every like 4 hours, right? That's kind of how you think about it,
right?
I don't know. There's a lot of weird like inbred metagaming and stuff. Also, I talk a lot about Storm when like most of the Storm like wins and trophies are like between 4 players. Who just play who play like 30 leagues a week each.
Right. Going back one point, I seem to recall, and I have no idea how or why I have this notion, but I remember 55% being their target for like, this is problematic, we need to do something about it, as far as win rates go. Yeah, and I'm not sure if anybody else remembers a statistic like that. That might be.
I don't remember. No.
Okay.
I don't remember citing a number.
Right. I seem to recall 55%, and it might have just been in a conversation or an article or something. But that's kind of why I feel that bringing up 55% was reasonable, because it's like, this is the number that is problematic. We're trying to get lower than this.
55 is really big for an all-encompassing, percentage, especially when you're the top dog and everyone's gunning for you. So they published this in the standard win rates. Everyone's been complaining about black-red aggro, right? 51.9%, that's hitting. And that's just dominating standard.
I think I don't want to get too off topic, but I think the other issue with the red-based aggro decks in standard is that they're just very like not interactive or interesting to play against. Whereas I think a lot of people enjoy standard because they can play, interactive games with like big creatures and like removal and all that back and forth and stuff. And the red decks kind of invalidate a lot of those sort of things about it. So I think people get like very emotionally hurt against that sort of strategy in standard. I don't want to like go off the rails on that, but
I like that. This is what we're apologizing for. Like out of all the times we've gone off topic, we're like, oh, sorry, we're talking about standard.
Just get it out of here.
Like fuck you, we're talking about Snapple and you're gonna listen to it. Oh, sorry, we had to bring up standard. That was not our intention.
All right, Ben, you had another deck?
Yeah, Sean mentioned Miracles earlier. We kind of really haven't talked about Miracles. It's the top deck in the metagame that, it's actually 5th. Mono Red Prison's also in there, but that has not been affected by the bans directly. Is that headed for being the best deck again? I don't really know. I think Sam knows the most about Miracles here.
I'm not sure. I haven't played a whole lot of the current Miracles. I know old Miracles, one thing that it was very favored with against Deathrite Shaman is you have all these ones. It's very easy to flip a 1. You also were very likely to be playing Rest in Peace in the sideboard, but they're not doing that because they're very reliant on Snapcaster now. So I really can't tell you. I would imagine the deck is still quite good. I don't know if it gets any better or any worse. It
With
probably
the slowing down in general, that seems to really favor Miracles, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think Modern Miracles is even less of a control deck. It's more of like a tempo deck that, you know.
I will say
wipe
the
the
way
board when
that
it wants to.
the way that the current Miracles deck fights graveyard-based decks is much better against what remains of decks that rely on the graveyard. Because it can't play Rest in Peace because of its reliance on Snapcaster. The current build is generally some number of Containment Priests and 2 or 3 Surgical Extractions, and that's way better against Reanimator than it is against a Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, that's true.
I think Miracles is one of those decks. We were talking about D&T earlier, and that it's just so, like, it has the potential to play so many answers that it just kind of waits for the metagame to stabilize, and then it can just kind of build itself in a way that is favorable against the metagame. And this happened a lot back when Top was legal, but I still think there's some remnants of that just on the merits of, like, being such a smooth mana-based deck and only playing 2 colors and having so many cantrips. Miracle seems like the kind of deck that will adapt to whatever the new metagame is.
Yeah.
So
I agree. We haven't seen the end of Miracles or anything. I don't know if it's gonna get much better, or I can't imagine it getting worse unless we see a major meta shift that works against it.
Yeah.
Eldrazi kind of similar in terms of it's not. I mean, everyone losing Deathrite seems favorable for Eldrazi, but also the Chalice deck that was pretty strong against those decks. So
I wanted to point out to show the extent to which Miracles can adjust. At one point, the countertop deck was playing 2 main deck of the green-red sweeper.
Oh, Firespout?
Firespout.
Yeah, no, thank you. Not interested in that.
Not Savage Twister? Okay.
The second best card from Mirage. Yeah, no, that deck is very resilient, and even though it's like, I think you can make a case for it being like the best deck right now, after like the best deck in terms of like what wasn't affected directly by Gitaxian Probe or Deathrite Shaman. But of course, we don't know what we're talking about. This could all be entirely wrong. So
yeah, I think Death and Taxes are the decks to look for in 6 months when we kind of have a new meta to start coming back strong.
It seems like a lot of our thesis is beware of the Plains basic land type.
Said no one ever.
Yeah. I don't know. The whole thing about Miracles is just it fights on 2 axes that are really commonly used, right? Like it's very good at killing creatures and it's very good at interacting on the stack. And it has, so I guess it's like, I don't know, 30% of each of those and 40% of like glue to hold that together, right? So I guess that's, that formula is not really that changed.
Yeah. Its biggest drawback is that it's slow, and we're about to see a slower format with less Deathrite Shaman.
Right, exactly.
Say that, although it could just, everyone starts playing Reanimator and the format goes light speed, but who knows?
I
actually think Reanimator is pretty good against the new Miracles deck because I mean I didn't play a ton of Miracles, but when I did, I think against Reanimator was game 1 was almost always terrible, and then game 2 you just had to counter something, hope you could like smack a counterbalance and not die before you untapped, and then you'd win the game, right? So I don't know. I think you have less outs to do that sort of thing, but I could be wrong. Maybe Containment Priest tilts it too, because I don't think I've played it with Containment Priest in the format. But
yeah, I
don't know.
Okay, we are 93 minutes into our half-hour podcast.
Woo!
Does anyone have any last thoughts before we skip to our closing question?
Guys, I'm really happy. Like, this has been a really good day. I mean, I had sushi for lunch. I mean, it's not something that happens all the time. Good sushi, and Deathrite Shaman and Probe got banned. It's been a really, really great day. That's all.
I'm pretty happy. The hardest thing to sign is going to be the Scalding Tarns, and I hope that should be done soon. So I'm pretty excited about that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually my greatest frustration is that I'm so disinterested in Legacy right now. I've shipped out probably 60 cards to be signed, and now I can't build a tier 1 deck because I just have so many random cards out being signed.
Do you want to play? You know what? I'll wait for you to ask the last question, and then I'll ask you if you want to play something.
All right, so our final question, and I'll just prompt y'all left or right as you are.
Standard Snake has a good Grixis Delvas matchup. Just remember that.
Yeah. So our final question: what are you going to be playing in the first weeks of the new metagame?
Sam, do you want to borrow Cracker Jacks?
I don't know what that is. I'm in.
Cracker Jacks is tracker stacks. It's green, white, tireless trackers, smoke.
That does not sound as good as Cheerios, which I have most of the deck right over here.
It does get to play chalices though, so it's very similar. It's like Eva Green, but worse.
Nope. Sean, what are you playing in the new meta?
Probably Cracker Jacks. That or Impact. I'm not really sure yet. Maybe some Rug Delver, but I don't actually own Lhurgoyfs. I don't know. So, Infect, final answer, I guess. Don't bring your Malaris, please. Anybody who's listening.
Ben, what are you playing with?
My Maliras are out being signed, unfortunately. So
score! Yeah, we're in! Let's do it! God, I just remembered, like, the third time I met Stu. Like, we've been friends, because like, we knew each other through Ben, and, like, I meet him in, like, the winning of, like, a win-a-duel tournament, and he just, like, sides into Malira against me, and I just get ranched. I'm like...
Oh, I told him to break that, too. I was dying.
You're right. They become pillows, right? Is that how that works?
What's that?
The what?
Your Inkmoth Nexus becomes a pillow.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Is that how that works?
Absolutely. It doesn't even do damage. It's just...
nothing.
Tough times ahead, Inkmoth. We wish you the best. Good luck.
But so my plans, I'm thinking of playing some Rug Delver, but the other one I'm going to be playing is some Pox, just because I find it very fun and I'm super excited for it, and I think Sinkhole might have legs again, and I'm going to find out if that's true.
Sinkhole? Really?
Sinkhole, man. Now the Deathrite Shaman's gone?
Have you ever tried sinkholing a volcanic island your opponent dazes using that volcanic island?
Yeah, that's annoying.
That feels really, really bad. It's just like, oh no, I guess I could pay for it.
Yeah. I'm going to be playing Sinkholes, though, because it's one of my favorite cards.
All right.
So, I love playing LED and Cabal Therapy, so I'm probably just going to play Dredge.
That's not what I thought that was going.
I've been thinking about building Dredge because now that I own LEDs, I own 90% of the expensive cards in that deck.
There are 4 breakthroughs in that deck, sir. Come on.
Well, Gary Thug is $4. I tried to pick some up for vintage Dredge, and I was just like, I don't want to spend $4 on Gary Thug.
Oh yeah.
It's like Bazaar's no problem. 4 months more worth. Get out.
I got to borrow the Bazaar of Baghdad. I'm just like, is there a version that doesn't play with Gary Thug? I mean, of course not.
No, I mean, I think long term I'll be playing Storm. I just want to try out Dredge in this and see, because I think it'll be pretty good, but maybe it won't be, and it'll just be absolutely awful. It's probably more likely, but I just want to try it out and see what people are thinking about against it. Because if it's unchecked, I think it is quite a good deck, though.
You guys just wait. Some motherfucker's going to show up with main decks, Surgicals, Maliras, and COP Blacks.
Yeah.
Saturday. It's like, I listen to y'all's podcast. I'm ready.
came
I want to bring the COP Blacks. My win con per scroll and Mistress Factory.
COP Artifacts. Boom.
If someone gets me with COP Artifacts, I would just be
good. Doesn't even work against Eldrazi. The card is just so narrow.
All right. Now I'm going to answer the question now that y'all are all going on tangents.
Let's do it.
Again,
Let's hear it.
I will be back to my old self of changing decks every 3 days.
That's not an answer.
So I think in order will be Bizarro Stormy, Bant, and Esperblade.
Nice.
Joanne expressed interest in Reanimator, so probably Death and Taxes.
Can we not put her on Reanimator?
Can we induct her into the cult of Grizzlebrand?
No, like I want people on like decks that turn creatures sideways, like creatures that don't pay 7 to draw 7 sideways.
It turns Grizzlebrand sideways.
It's like saying like
it turns Tyrant sideways.
Yeah, I play 4-color goblins. Make 14 goblins on turn 1.
It's so much fair if you show it to me from your hand rather than from the graveyard. You know, it feels so much fair.
Plus, I get to put a land into play. Like, I think that's reasonable for everybody, right?
Yeah, totally fair. There's card disadvantage. They spent 2 cards.
You forgot about the part where they pay 7 to get to draw. You know, like they end up plus
7 life.
cards.
Dude, that's like 35% of your life total. That's a lot.
All right.
Never activate that thing.
3.5 probes.
All right, let's get the fuck out of here. We've been on way too long.
All right.
Any closing thoughts in under 2 minutes each?
Mm-hmm.
I'm pumped. I'm excited to play Legacy again. Let's do it. That's my closing thoughts.
I don't know, I've logged like 150 hours of Eternal on Steam, not counting mobile, since like Memorial Day, and I haven't touched like a Magic card in that time. But I'm really excited to get back into it. I'm really excited to see where things go from here. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been kind of out of Legacy for the last like 4 months or so. Not just for Magic reasons, like for personal reasons as well. But I am very excited to kind of jump back in at this point in time. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Right. It's like a breath of fresh air right here.
Yeah, I've been playing Modern since GP Seattle, and I'm definitely ready to not play Modern anymore.
Sean. The only thoughts I have are group thoughts, which is don't forget to subscribe and go to our website, LoneStarLhurgoyfs.com. And also, we will have shirts up on Friday. And we have Old School in Austin on Saturday, and all that information is on the website.
What the shirts look like, if you guys don't know. Or it's on the website too, so.
Yeah, there will be an actual picture on the website.
Yeah, not attached to a person.
Yeah, so check all that. And then we have Vintage, not this weekend, but the weekend after. I'll be on the beach, so if it doesn't fire, I don't give a fuck. No one call me.
The beach?
Don't forget, Wizards is great in Vintage. You beat Merfolk once.
So I guess the question is, how good is Merfolk?
Nope.
In Vintage?
Yeah.
Oh, I bring Lawan Cephalid Empress in my sideboard to Vintage.
Oh, hold on. You could draw a Venn diagram between Wizards and Merfolk, and Curse Capture would be in the middle.
And Chameleon Colossus. Come on.
Okay. I think we should wrap this one up. It sounds like we've
have gone off the rails.
topic. Yeah. Were we ever on the rails?
Briefly. Briefly. I did a rail while y'all were talking.
Okay. Hey, Sam, are you going to like cut this down to like a 25-minute podcast?
No, last time I actually said that I would cut it down, and I even had some things that I said that I was like, ooh, I shouldn't have said that, I should edit that out. And then I was like, yeah, editing is hard.
All right. Yep.
Well,
yeah.
Thanks for listening, and if you're not listening, then you're not hearing this. So outro music goes now.